Animation is such a powerful tool for storytelling. It's so varied in its styles, tones, and genres. It can bring so much humanity to non-human things. It can also get away with stuff that would never work in live action. Every last detail of animation is under the control of its creators. Every color or movement is controlled to tell its story. Obviously, I'm a big fan of animation. Every once in a while, there's an animated moment that's just so powerful or emotional that it sticks in my head long after I watched it. This list is obviously very subjective, since it's based on moments that really touched me. I'm not saying these are the best or even the most perfect examples of animation, they're just the moments that impacted me the most while watching. Spoiler warning for all the animated moments ahead, I'll leave timestamps to skip them. But without further ado, here's my top 10 most impactful animated moments. Number 10, Final Space. I personally think Final Space is the perfect template for what an adult cartoon should be. Most adult cartoons use the fact that it's for adults to get away with crude and raunchy humor, while Final Space uses the fact that it's an adult cartoon to deal with heavy emotions and topics. Yes, it's a comedy, but it's very story and character driven, leading us to the moment I've selected. Throughout the series, Avocado has been searching for his son, with the help of our main character Gary. In episode 6, Avocado finally rescues his son. As Gary, Avocado, and his son Little Cardo are making their escape, the villain of the story, the Lord Commander, takes one final shot at our heroes as they escape, sneaking a bomb onto Little Cardo. For a second, everything is looking up for our heroes. Avocado finally united with his son, Gary's making progress with his relationship with Quinn. Then suddenly, the emotional music and the moment are shattered by beeping. With not a moment to spare, Avocado grabs the bomb off his son, looks at Gary, telling him to take care of his boy, then makes the ultimate sacrifice. The moments before the explosion happen so fast, but as the actual explosion happens, everything slows down, allowing us to soak in what's happening. In the moment, we get to see everyone's horrified reactions. As the explosion clears, we see Avocado's body floating away into space. Where kids' cartoons will sometimes have deaths, they wouldn't allow us to see the result of the death. This is where adult animation can have the upper hand. In emotional moments, it can show us the consequences very clearly. It can tell darker stories, which can make the moment far more impactful. The final shot leaves us with Little Cardo looking into space, as shadows surround him, showing us how lonely he feels again. After all that time waiting for his dad to rescue him, he's right back where he started. Avocado's death really hits hard after seeing Gary and Avocado's friendship grow, especially since earlier in the episode, Avocado opens up to Gary about his past. He has a long and dark history, but Gary is still willing to accept him, showing how their bond has truly grown. This moment also sets up some really good character arcs, mostly Gary trying to step up and be a parental figure for Little Cardo. They've got a really strong dynamic. Final Space did an excellent job at executing this scene. From its memorable visuals like Avocado's body floating away, to the emotional music playing as the whole scene plays out. It really hits hard, especially after seeing Avocado finally unite with his son. It really feels like this victory is instantly ripped away from us. Number 9. Toy Story 3's ending. Toy Story 3's ending is a beautiful send-off to the Toy Story franchise. Yep, it's definitely the last Toy Story, definitely not a new one in the making right now. But seriously, this was a perfect send-off to these characters we've spent 3 films with. In this third film, the toy's owner has grown up and is heading off to college. But where does that leave our main characters? Throughout the film, they're not sure where their future lies. Are they going to be donated or put away in the attic? This especially weighs hard on Woody, who Andy is going to take with him to college, so he has to choose between Andy and his friends. The stakes and emotions are high in this film. The build up to the end is even higher. The toys are trapped in a garbage incinerator, and holy shit, is this intense. After the toys scramble to escape, Buzz realizes that there is no escape, and instead of struggling to escape, he grabs Jesse's hand, and in a heartbreaking moment we realize Buzz has accepted this situation. They all hold hands and wait for death. Now you know they're going to survive, but are they? It's not played off that way. Now, I saw this when I was 10, and boy, little Ben didn't think they would make it out of this one. All this left me shaken, so when the actual end finally arrives, I'm already pretty emotional. Andy takes the toys to give them away to a girl named Bonnie. As he shows her the toys, he describes their personalities, based on the way he used to play with them, showing how much they meant to him. He makes sure they'll be well looked after.
Now, you gotta promise to take good care of these guys. They mean a lot to me.
Bonnie checks the toy box. To Andy's surprise, Woody is there. In this moment, Andy is clearly hesitant to let Woody go. But seeing how much Bonnie likes Woody, Andy decides to let him go. Man, the facial expressions in this scene are amazing. You can see all the emotions Andy's feeling. Props to Pixar for their amazing and impressive animation. Andy's description of Woody feels like a direct thank you and a goodbye to Woody. As the camera zooms in on Woody's face, even though he's pulling his default face, it feels like emotions just pouring out of it. And with that, the toys get the one thing they've been longing for the entire film: to be played with. Again, even though the toys are just in their frozen states, they look extremely happy. They are where they belong. They get one last chance to be with Andy, and a new beginning with Bonnie. And when Andy is finally leaving, Bonnie makes Woody wave goodbye. It physically moves Andy, because to him, he's actually saying goodbye to a friend. And with one final look back, he whispers, "Thanks, guys." The movie ending on a happy note, having our toys meet with the new toys, as the camera pans away to the clouds that look a lot like the clouds from Andy's wallpaper, which is where the story originally began, in the first movie. It's funny, in the first Toy Story, Woody is competing with Buzz to be Andy's favourite toy, but in this film, he ultimately chooses Buzz over Andy. Everything about this scene is just so powerful, from the music to the lighting. That paired with Andy's performance really hits hard for me. It's such a powerful ending that I think stuck with a lot of people. At least, it did for me. It's too bad Toy Story 4's ending kind of undoes this ending, but this is a list about good things, so let's move on to the next moment on my list. Number 8. The beginning of Up. If you've seen Up, then you probably know what part I'm going to be talking about. Up's opening is a story in itself. It beautifully shows us Ellie and Carl's whole life. It's shown in a seamless montage. I think the truly amazing part about this scene is it makes us deeply care for these characters we have only seen for about 4 minutes and 21 seconds. In only 4 minutes and 21 seconds, we get their life story. We see the ups and downs of life. We get a deep understanding of who these characters are. We get to see their hopes and dreams, and their struggles. And by the end, we understand exactly where Carl is at. Carl has already had his happily ever after. He's lived a wonderful life, and now he's basically just waiting for it to be over. In his eyes, when Kelly passed away, his life finished. It's the perfect setup for the movie. The music in this scene is iconic. It does a great job at capturing the ups and downs that the scene depicts. Speaking of the ups and downs, the montage is very well paced. It slows down when it needs to, showing us the pain they're feeling. The ending of the montage is honestly heartbreaking. It's just so sad seeing Carl all alone, and it's also sad seeing how their dream gets put aside because life just gets in the way. And honestly, that's probably going to happen to a lot of us. We're not going to be able to pursue every dream we have in life, because life is unexpected and crazy. But that's okay. As long as we try, and as long as we are with the ones who love us, that's okay, because life in itself is an adventure. I really believe that Up has some beautiful and timeless messages that will always be important. This scene truly is a masterpiece that never fails to pull at my heartstrings. Number 7. Batman Beyond: The Joker's Death. Moving away from emotional Pixar moments, I would like to cover a darker scene. The Batman animated series has to be one of the best animated shows ever. Along with that, it's also my absolute favorite interpretation of Batman and his rogues gallery. The Batman animated series sparked an animated universe, connected with other shows like Superman the Animated Series and Justice League. We also got Batman Beyond. Batman Beyond takes place in the future of the Batman animated series, and it's here we find one of my favorite animated moments. In Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker, we hear the tale of Batman and Joker's final confrontation. Now, there have been many interpretations of the Joker's demise throughout Batman's history, but one of the reasons this version feels different is the long history between these two characters. We've seen them battle in many different situations over many years. Most viewers will feel very familiar with them, so for this Joker to actually die is a big deal. The scene opens with the hunt for Robin. Robin has been missing for 3 weeks, and Batman is mad, spending day and night searching for him, until finally the Joker invites him to the old ruins of old Arkham. So much of this scene is filmed like a horror movie, from the Joker's appearance when capturing Robin, to Harley's creepy singing in the asylum. It leaves an unsettling feeling, but that's soon broken, at least for a little bit, when Batman finds the Joker. The Joker plays off the situation like it's just one of his normal gimmicks. Even the music becomes more lighthearted. That is, until he reveals what he's been doing for the last 3 weeks with Robin. He pulls back the curtain to reveal a very unnerving sight. A creepy smile in the shadows. It's Robin. He starts laughing like the Joker, but pained. His face just looks strained. It's honestly horrifying. Even though Batman has barely spoken throughout the scene, He shows how unbelievably angry he is in his posture and actions, and after Robin is revealed, Batman breaks through his restraints and just straight up throws a knife at the Joker, but the Joker effortlessly dodges because he understands Batman like no other. Again, this scene is perfect. The writers very clearly have a deep understanding of these two characters. The Joker lures Batman into a theater where the creepy factor doubles. The Joker plays a tape labeled Family Memories, and boy is it unnerving. It's a black and white film of the Joker torturing Robin. There's no music besides the occasional creepy ambience. This silence paired with the shots of the Joker preparing to torture Robin are just scary. As I said, it feels like something straight out of a horror movie. The Joker's dialogue in this scene is just perfect. You can really tell he's just relishing every second of it. And if the scene couldn't get crazy enough, we get another bombshell. The Joker knows Batman's identity, and his reveal is perfect.
And the dear lad began to share such secrets with me. Secrets that are mine alone to know. Bruce. It's true, Batsy. I know everything. And kinda like the kid who peeks at his Christmas presents, I must admit, it's sadly anticlimactic. Behind all the sturm and batarangs, you're just a little boy in a playsuit crying for mommy and daddy. It'd be funny if it weren't so pathetic.
Even after the Joker finds out who Batman really is, though, he immediately switches back to calling him Batman because that's who he is to the Joker. Batman, fueled by raw rage, moves incredibly fast. We get a fast and brutal fight scene. Well, calling it a fight scene's a bit much, more like a beating. The animation is amazing. Everything from the glass shards in the air to the lights of the projector is just so sharp and distinct. The animation really stands out here. But no matter what the Joker does, and no matter how angry Batman gets, the Joker knows Batman will never cross the line and kill him. And this gives the Joker an advantage. Joker wounds Batman, but instead of killing Batman himself, he gives Robin a gun and tells him to finish the job. Robin, uncontrollably laughing, struggles to resist all of the torture and brainwashing that the Joker's put him through. But with his final scrap of sanity, he manages to just move the gun so it shoots the Joker instead of Batman. And with his final breath, the Joker mutters,
That's not funny. That's not...
Very fitting words for the Clown Prince of Crime. Robin's stuck in an uncontrollable fit of laughter as he slowly breaks down crying. Even though the Joker dies, the effects of this incident are long-lasting. It takes Robin a year to overcome the torture he went through, and it tears the Batman family apart, leaving Batman alone. Joker went too far in this plan, and it cost him. It feels like the right final battle for these two iconic characters to have. It shows such a deep understanding for them. It's just written so well. Number 6. Owl House, Reaching Out. It was a hard decision, figuring out what scene I wanted to use for the Owl House. It's packed with lots of really good moments that really develop and flush out our characters. But there were two moments that really caught my eye. The ending of Yesterday's Lie, and Luce and Amity's conversation in Reaching Out. And thanks to your guys' help, I settled on Reaching Out. I really like this scene because we get a really open and honest moment between Luce and Amity. It also feels like we are getting some important character development between Luce and Amity, and honestly, it's just a very human moment. The episode opens with Luce getting a notification on her phone, saying that she has an event on today. She then spends the rest of the episode trying to avoid thinking about this event. To avoid thinking about it, Luce helps Amity in a fighting tournament, but she keeps getting notifications, causing her to do more and more drastic things to avoid her problems. This eventually ends up in a disaster, ruining Amity's competition, which leads us to our moment. Amity runs off and Luce follows, and what follows is a really meaningful conversation. Amity is annoyed that Luce disrupted her plans, but when questioning her about it, she's not using an angry or accusing tone. She's concerned and confused and searching for answers. It would have been easy for Amity to be more angry in this moment, but her concern took priority. Luce finally opens up about what she's been avoiding. The reminder on her phone is for the anniversary of her father's passing, but what's really bothering her is that she can't be with her mother. Normally they would spend the day together, picking flowers. But she can't be there for her mum ever since Luce destroyed the portal at the ending of Season 1. Ever since then, she's been determined to find a way back to her. This got a whole lot worse in Yesterday's Lie, in the heartbreaking moment when Luce promised that when she gets home she would never return to the Boiling Isles. The guilt and longing to see her mum has been eating away at her ever since, and this event has finally pushed her to her limit. She finally opens up about her inner feelings with Amity. We have known Luce has been feeling guilty for this situation for quite a while now, but this shows us to what extent it's been affecting her. I think this scene sends a really important message about open communication and about sharing our problems with our friends and not taking on every burden by ourselves. I think a lot of us can relate to bottling up our emotions and thoughts, and it's important to reach out to our loved ones about it. We don't need to face everything alone. Most of the time there are people who are willing and want to help us, but taking that first step and just telling them how you feel can be very hard, but it's really important. Also, the ending of this scene is really sweet with Amity promising to help Luce pick flowers. The animation is really beautiful. Even though not much is happening, the background has a beautiful palette of colours. It's also nice that the scene takes place at the Grom tree, since this place is very connected to their relationship. It played a huge part in getting them together, so it's only right that here would be the place that they would open up to each other. The scene is also made very impactful, because it's the first time we hear about Luce's dad, which makes it an even more heartbreaking scene. I love that this episode really slowed down and took the time to give us a really genuine scene. Number 5. Kung Fu Panda 2, In a Piece. The Kung Fu Panda franchise is actually fire, bro. It's just so good. It's honestly peak animation. It's got amazing characters who are extremely funny and surprisingly deep. It's got beautiful animation and some of the most impressive animated fight scenes I've ever seen. Kung Fu Panda is also full of some really meaningful messages. They may seem obvious, but the way they are executed is just amazing. But which scene is the best? It's a tough question for such a good franchise. I decided to settle on the final fight in Kung Fu Panda 2. This scene shows off the series' best aspects. The scene starts with a really fun fight, as Po saves the Furious Five. As always, the fight scenes are just amazing and impressive. They have amazing choreography, and the music really builds up the excitement and tension in this scene. The composer Hans Zimmer did the music for Pirates of the Caribbean, so you know it's straight fire. The excitement really builds up as more Kung Fu masters join the fight. You can really feel the tides turning in our hero's favour. I love the raw excitement we get through Po, as they all jump in the air. The scene does an amazing job at seamlessly transitioning from a fun, exciting, heroic battle to our enemy Shen's panicked state. They really emphasize them closing in on Shen, his actions becoming more desperate. All of Shen's actions and motivations are driven by his need to avoid his destiny, and right before his eyes he sees it closing in, causing him to act out. He instantly proves how desperate he is by killing his top commander without a second thought because he refuses to shoot at his own men. As the action and the music reaches its peak, it's shot down as Shen destroys his own ships with our heroes on it. The scene has everything. It goes from fun jokes and amazing action to a sudden serious moment. As Shen fires the cannon, Tigress dives in front of Po to save him. It shows their strong character development. Tigress went from one of the people who hated Po the most to someone who would willingly sacrifice herself for him. Po's just as willing to do the same for his friends as he takes the heat by drawing Shen's attention to him. The next part really shows how animation can outdo live action. Po faces down Shen's cannons. They open fire, but Po simply deflects them. The moves he does would look so unnatural and unrealistic in live action. It just wouldn't work. But here it feels so natural. Then this happens. I think this is brilliant for a number of reasons. The yin and yang ties into the movie's themes of destiny. Po and Shen are two sides of the same coin. Shen has let his future dictate every aspect of his life, while Po doesn't let his dark past define him. It's about choosing who they want to be. I also think the yin and yang is simply brilliant, because what other medium could do this without it being so unrealistic it takes you out of the moment? If this moment happened in live action, it would seem so silly and not work. But in this beautiful animated moment, it does work. This part also ties everything together really nicely, having Po find inner peace also be a way to fight back. When the smoke clears, Shen sees everything he's worked for destroyed. He spent his whole life trying to avoid this moment, but just like Oogway said in the first film, one often meets his destiny on the road he takes to avoid it. Po staying true to himself offers Shen one last chance. I love how Po manages to offer some real wisdom while still being funny at the same time.
How did you find peace? I took away your parents. Everything. I scarred you for life.
See, that's the thing, Shen. Scars heal.
No, they don't. Wounds heal.
Oh yeah, what do scars do? They fade, I guess?
I don't care what scars do.
But of course Shen continues down his self-destructive path. giving us yet another amazing fight scene. Shen accidentally brings his own demise by cutting the ropes holding the remains of his weapon, and in the moment that it falls, Shen stops and accepts his fate. This is his last chance to take control of his destiny, choosing to forfeit his life rather than to let Po finish him, as his prophecy foretold. This is just such an amazing animated moment that deserves far more attention than it gets. It works on so many levels. It's funny, serious, emotional, intense, and it's just beautifully animated, and just an amazing fight in general that has a meaningful message to tell. It truly is a masterpiece of cinema. Number 5. Gravity Falls, The Portal Opens. Gravity Falls is one of the best animated shows. It's driven by its characters, story, and mystery, and all of this comes together to make the ultimate scene. The FBI storms in on the Pines family, and they arrest Stan. They accuse him of stealing toxic waste from a government facility. This pushes Dipper and Mabel to investigate their great uncle to prove his innocence. Only, the more they find out, the worse it gets. He did steal the waste, and his name might not even be Stan. In fact, he has dozens of secret identities and passports, and on top of that there's a newspaper saying Stan Pines died. And then, to top it off even more, he has a secret underground lab with a strange device, and in the lab he has the journals. One of the biggest mysteries in Gravity Falls is who wrote the mysterious journal found in episode 1. Well, it turns out Stan has the other journals. All the evidence points to him being guilty. The audience is put in the same position as the Pines twins. We have spent the whole show with Stan. We want to trust him, but on the other hand, we know he's up to something. We have seen him working in this lab, so we know he's up to something, but what? The situation gets worse when Dipper finds the secret warning in the journals saying that this device could end the universe, and to make the situation even more tense, there's a timer counting down to the device's activation. Everything about this build-up is amazing. All these mysteries, all these discoveries. The panic and pressure of the situation are just perfect. Our characters scramble to find a way to turn off this mysterious doomsday device. They find the kill button, but before they can push it, Stan bursts in. Stan begs them not to push the button, but before he can explain, the device switches off the gravity. This is so awesome. Gravity Falls is finally living up to its name. Stan is desperate to let the machine continue, while Dipper and Seuss are holding him back. The stakes are just so high. The final choice falls to Mabel, the only one still at the button. Dipper begs Mabel to switch it off, arguing with his logic, while Stan uses his emotions, begging her to trust him, to put blind faith in him. This scene is just so emotional. We know these characters so well at this point, and it's heartbreaking to see them fighting so desperately with each other. Like Mabel, we want to trust Stan, but can we? Mabel's reaction is just heartbreaking, but in one moment of absolute trust, she lets go of the button, siding with Stan. And for a moment, we are unsure of the consequences as a bright light flashes on all of our main characters. Then, out of the ruins of the portal, a mysterious figure walks out, and we find out he's the author of the journals. The credits teasing us with two kids sitting on a swing by the beach. This scene is just amazing. It's got so much iconic imagery. That paired with the strong emotions really burnt this moment into my brain. It answers so many questions that we've had for the whole show. Who is the author? What was Stan's big secret? But more importantly, it puts our main characters to the ultimate test. Who can you trust? And where do your loyalties lie? And how far are you willing to go? At the time of this episode's release, hype was insane. We were getting close to the big mysteries, and Alex Hirsch, the creator, was making fake leaks to push the hype even further. The combination of mystery, paired with its amazing cast of characters, cements Gravity Falls as a cult classic, and this scene as one of the most powerful animated moments of all time, in my eyes at least. Number 3. Puss in Boots 2, The Panic Attack Scene. Puss in Boots 2 is a masterpiece, and YouTube has rightfully acknowledged it. Its animation is outstanding, its story is compelling, but more importantly, the characters are brilliant. And that leads us to the part I want to talk about. Puss is down to his last life, and needs the wishing star to restore his 9 lives. This puts him in a position he's never been in before. He's afraid of death. He's afraid of dying, but he's also afraid of the literal manifestation of death who is hunting him down. And this is where the scene I want to talk about comes in. A fight breaks out. Normally Puss would leap into action without a second thought, but this time it's different. He can't fight right. He's far too aware of all the danger. Henchmen are exploding left, right, and center, and Puss gets caught in one of these explosions, causing a shell shock sound. All the other sound is blocked out, and suddenly an eerie whistle fills the air. He's here. Death! His hairs stand up on edge. Puss is consumed by fear. He starts running in uncontrollable panic, until eventually he stops, stuck in an uncontrollable panic attack. This scene does an amazing job at showing fear and anxiety attacks. As Puss runs, the camera is sporadic. The camera is zoomed in and blurry on the edges, showing how trapped he feels. He can't hear or focus on anything. He can only hear his own heart racing. From what I've seen from other YouTubers, everyone thinks this is a very accurate depiction of a panic attack. Normally the color palette for this film is bright and colorful, but here all the scenery is dark and twisted. Even though we know Puss will be alright, since it's a kids movie, I'm genuinely worried for him. I feel his fear in this moment. Even hearing Death's whistle gives me goosebumps. It's just all executed so well. Normally the movie is fairly fast paced, but for our next part, it really takes the time to just slow down. Perito follows Puss and tries to get his attention, but Puss is just so out of it, so he sits with him and comforts him. After sitting for a while, Puss can finally calm down, his rapid beating heart slowing down. This allows him to open up about his internal struggles, his fears, and his situation with Kitty Softpaws. This movie takes its themes very seriously. It handles and expresses its characters far better than any adult cartoon would. When I was writing this list of animated moments, I was stuck between this scene and the final fight with Death, but the final fight with Death would be nowhere near as intense and meaningful without this scene showing how deeply affected Puss is. We wouldn't find him overcoming his fear of death so satisfying if we didn't have this deep understanding of how afraid he truly is. It truly is amazing that they made this funny cat with boots more relatable and more expressive than most movies do with real actors. Number 2. The ending of Clone Wars. I am a huge Star Wars fan. It's one of my absolute favorite franchises, and I can say without a doubt that this is one of the most impactful scenes for me, not just in animated Star Wars stuff, but in the whole franchise. It's the perfect send-off to the Clone Wars. While the scene itself is beautiful and tragic, a lot of power for this scene comes from the whole series and its final 4 episodes. In the live-action films, the clones are just soldiers. They're disposable and don't really have much character. They're all the same, but the Clone Wars animated series changed that. In fact, it focused on a lot of them as individuals. Over the 7 seasons, we got to know a lot of clones and made a deep connection with some of them. This makes what we know is coming so much worse. If you've seen the movies, then you know what's coming. In the last episodes of the Clone Wars, the threat of the ending constantly looms. The Clone Wars does an excellent job at using our knowledge of the Star Wars franchise to build up tension for what's to come. Order 66. Order 66 is handled so well, it's just heartbreaking to see Ahsoka fight her own men. But this isn't about the last episode, it's about the last scene. The camera pans over the aftermath of the battle. At the end of the ruins of the battle stands Ahsoka, looking over the graves of her fallen men. The men who were forced to turn on her, the men who she fought side by side with. The camera pans over the graves a few times, letting the weight of the situation sink in. The characters we've followed for 7 seasons are gone for good. Unlike other Star Wars endings, this one is just bleak. Even Revenge of the Sith had a little hope because Luke and Leia are born, but here there's nothing. Often Star Wars doesn't focus on the consequences of war, even though it's got war in the name, but here we are shown the hard truth. There are no winners in war. To make things worse, some of the helmets have the markings that the soldiers put there to show respect for Ahsoka. They deeply cared for her, but in the end they were just pawns in a larger war they barely understood, forced to do things they would never wish to. As Ahsoka stands over the graves of her fallen friends, she takes out her lightsaber and drops it, leaving it at the graves, leaving it with her past, symbolizing that part of her died with them and the Republic. Her path is to no longer be a Jedi. That part of her is dead. As she once again stares at the graves, everything fades to white, and an Imperial shuttle fades into screen. We've cut to the future. A future that's let the past fade and been buried by time and literally snow. The Clone Wars a distant memory for the universe. A dark, striking figure walks through the snow to the old wreckage. Darth Vader. Darth Vader looks upon the ruins of his past life. He reaches into the snow and finds his former Padawan's lightsaber. He ignites it and looks up to see a bird circling the graves. Long story short, this bird has deep connections to Ahsoka and the light side of the Force. I personally think Vader holding the blue lightsaber and having the bird circling him may show that there is still a small part of the light side in him, but he turns his back on it and walks away. Everything here is a direct cause of his actions, the destruction, the deaths of all these men, and what he thinks to be the death of his Padawan, the snow showing his cold detachment and need to isolate and separate himself from his past life. As he walks away, one single clone helmet lies buried in the snow. Vader's reflection moving away. This shows how Anakin and the Republic turned their back on the clones, abandoned them, and left them to fade into obscurity. The biggest tragedy of the Clone Wars is the clones themselves. They were bred for a pointless war they didn't really understand, they never got to see what they were fighting for, and they were immediately abandoned when they weren't needed. This scene is full of standout imagery, and the song, Burying the Dead, is a perfect fit. It's cold, eerie, and tragic. It really lets it sink in that it's over, there's just nothing left. The ending of the Clone Wars perfectly wraps up Ahsoka's character and the shows. It gives us a really powerful look at the Clone Wars that the movies never did. It even enhances the scenes in the movies and actually makes moments like Plo Koon's death sadder. It's truly a masterpiece and one of the best Star Wars stories ever told. But now, which animated moment impacted me the most? Number 1. Amphibia True Colors. This was a really hard decision to make. Amphibia has some amazing moments, especially its finale, but even though the finale is amazing, it still doesn't reach the heights True Colors does. True Colors hits hard on so many levels. It has so many big twists and developments in the plot, it has some awesome world building, and it does amazing setup for the next season. But more importantly than that, we have some amazing character moments. But now to the moment itself. After Sasha and Grimes' rebellion fails, our heroes restore King Andrius to power. It's finally time for our heroes to return home. But plot twist, Andrius is evil. Now this wasn't too hard to figure out, but the reveal is so dramatic. It reveals Utopia's past, but the coolest part of this reveal is that we find out Utopia isn't just a city, but a flying castle. The threat levels go through the roof when Andrius summons his army of robots, and decides to demonstrate the power of the music box, and his flying castle. Then, after all this, Andrius drops another bombshell, that one of the girls purposely got them stuck in Amphibia. The reveal of Marcy trapping them in Amphibia on purpose is wild. Every season, the show finds a way to show the day they got stuck in Amphibia in a new light. Marcy breaks down as she tries to explain herself.
The day we left, your birthday, they told me my dad got a new job out of state. They're making me move away. They were gonna tear us apart.
Mercy.
I found the box. I had no idea that it would actually work, but it did. And it sent us to a place where we'd never have to grow apart, where the three of us could be friends forever together.
How could you? I've been missing my parents, my life.
But look at how much fun we've had. Look at how much you've both grown. Look at Sprig. I gave you this. I gave you everything. I just didn't want to be alone.
Ironically, her fear of losing her friends pushed them further away. Her speech is just so sad and unsettling. The way she tries to take credit for Sprig is just so desperate. But even though her actions were selfish, they're also very tragic and somewhat understandable. It gives us a huge insight into Marcy's character. Our main characters team up to fight against Andrius, and it seems to be going well. Polly gets the music box, but Andrius has Sprig, and threatens to drop him off the castle. Everyone backs down, but Andrius says this.
That's the thing about friends, isn't it? The more you love them, the more it hurts when they go. Allow me to demonstrate.
Amphibia is about a lot of things, but the most important part of this show is Anne and Sprig's friendship. It's what drives the show. So they take this moment very seriously. Everyone's reactions are heartbreaking. Anne is stunned. Everything fades out. She can't focus on anything. She drops to the ground in pain, as memories of her and Sprig flow through her mind. The best one being the end credits scene. We've seen it at the end of every episode, played with its heartwarming music. So seeing it in this new context really pulls at the heartstrings. It's a very clever use of the scene. Something inside Anne snaps, and as it does, something strange happens with the music box. The energy of the blue gem flows to Anne, giving her powers. Now this is where I find the writing brilliant, because I think Anne getting powers wouldn't work in any other situation. I think it would come off as cheesy and silly, and honestly in any other situation, I would probably hate it. But here, it's used so well. It's used as an extension of her emotions. In this form, she can only seem to focus on one thing, and that's Sprig. Each move feels like her unleashing her raw anger and grief.
Give him back. Give him back. Where'd you go?
The animation that plays next is stunning. It definitely bumps up a notch from the normal animation in the series. This paired with the beautiful music really makes this scene stand out. But unleashing all this raw power drains Anne pretty fast, causing her to pass out. After this, her powers would be used very sparingly throughout the show. They're only used in critical moments, which I think was a really wise decision on the writer's part. But luckily, while all that was happening, Marcy saves Sprig, they all unite, but Andreas moves in to kill Anne because she's too dangerous to be left alive, but he's suddenly stopped as the castle shakes. Marcy grabs the music box and has opened a portal to escape through. In an intense final scene, everyone dives to the portal, but just before they can escape, the next devastating twist hits.
Marcy, hurry! I just need to...
Now look what you've made me do.
Marcy falls to the ground, and our heroes are sucked into the portal, stranding them on Earth. It's an absolute wild ride. There are so many twists and turns, so many emotional moments. Season 1's final really made the show stand out to me, but Seasons 2 cemented this show and characters as something special that would stick with me for a long time. It made me realize how much I really care for these characters. It also did such an amazing job at answering questions and building on the lore, but it also made me unbelievably hyped for what's next. Is Marcy alright? How are they going to get back to Amphibia? And what's up with the powers? Even the name has so many layers. True colors. We see Andreas, Marcy, and Sasha's true colors. We see their real intent. But we also see Anne's literal true colors in her powers. It's just a beautiful scene that really hit home for me. I can't imagine how I would feel if something happened to one of my best friends, so this scene really resonated with me. It also inspired me to cover cartoons on my channel, which has done crazy stuff for it. So for me at least, this was the most impactful animated moment. But these are just my thoughts. What animated moments really impacted you? Let me know in the comments. There are plenty of amazing animations out there, and if you guys want more, I can definitely cover them. But for now, thanks for bearing with me.